So what I'll be teaching you guys today is wedging clay, making slabs, making coils, and then how to attach your clay together and things like that. All right. So first I'll start with wedging. Wedging, you typically want to have your clay in a block type form. It's just easier to control and move that way in order to get the best wedge. So put the block between your hands, have it leaning on one edge of your block, and you're going to push away from you and down at the same time. Then you're going to roll it, do the same thing. And you do that about 10 or so times. My clay is a little hard, but... And you're going to start getting this shape. It's called a ram's head wedge because it supposedly looks like a ram's head, if you see it or not. And after you do it a few times, you can pound it into a squarish or cube shape again, rotate it to go the other direction, and do that same process where you're wedging it about 10 or so times, pressing down and away from you as you're wedging. If you want to check to see if there's any air bubbles in your clay, you can cut it in half with your wire cutting tool. But if you wedged it a few times, there shouldn't be that many air bubbles. But that's why you wedge, is to get rid of those air bubbles. Next, making a slab. You're just going to start pounding this onto your canvas pad to get it a little flatter. And then you're going to use your rolling pin to start rolling it out. And once it gets a little thinner, that's when you're going to start using these to ensure that it's all the same thickness throughout it. So it kind of helps to start in the center and move around this way, flip it, turn it. And depending on how big your base is how big you will need your slab of clay to be. So this is my base here. So I don't need it much bigger than this, but I still need to even it out so it's all the same thickness. Closer. That should be relatively the same thickness, and you can pick it up and feel it if you're unsure, just to make sure that it is. And then you can go ahead and cut your base out. You can choose the shape of your base, whether you want it to be square, circular, whatever it may be. But then that will be the size of the bottom of your vessel. Or if you're in advanced ceramics, the sides of your vase. I didn't do the best job. Take that out. Now you have the base to your coil pot, and you can start making coils to add on to it. How you can do that, you can do it on this canvas, but it works a little bit better if you do roll your coils out on the table. I don't know why. This clay is so hard. it's beneficial if you get it in the relative shape of a coil before you start rolling it out. But you generally want it like the thickness of a finger. If you get too little, like a pinky finger, you're gonna be taking a lot of coils to build that up. The thickness of a finger is about right. And typically I do with the palms of my hands, and I start at the center of the coil and I move my hands out like this. And you gotta make sure you're rolling it all the way. Otherwise you're gonna start getting your coil like flopping back and forth, and it'll be real thin. Mine is starting to thin. If your clay starts cracking or anything like that, just use your water bottle to spray some water onto your coil. But mine got real thin right there. That's not the best example. Once you have your coil and you're ready to attach it, the best tool I use for slipping and scoring is this one. It just scores it nice to me. Do that. Grab your slip, which I don't have right now, so that's okay. Sure, if you have some. But then you'll just start building it around. You can choose to end it here, or you can choose to bring it up onto that second level. But all you really do is use the slip like a glue. You attach it onto the coil, a little bit onto, and it doesn't matter if your slip is brown or white, because you'll be adding glaze to these anyway, so that'll change the color of your clay. And then you'll attach your coil on so that it stays in place. I wouldn't worry about smoothing it just yet. I would get a few coils on there before you start smoothing it out. But then in your coil vessel, if you want the pot to go in, you're going to start placing the coil on the inside a little bit. But if you want your vessel to start going out, you're going to want to place it on the outside, doing that same where you're scoring each of your pieces of clay, adding slip, not like a ton of slip, just enough, and then you can start building that way. But if you want your vessel to go outwards, you're putting it on the outside of the coil. If you want it to go in, you're placing it on the inside. So like if your vessel has a lip like that is when you would go in or out. Yeah.